Berg lays down the law on sweating bullets, Sunday at 7.
Once again, we say good morning. We say good show. I'm speaking slowly because I've just met the fastest reader in the world. We're going to do a little session today. You're going to meet a man I've always wanted to meet. His name was Howard Stephen Berg. Mr. Berg is going to give us a few of the reading secrets of the world's fastest reader. And this is a subject that I think is most tantalizing and exciting. Speed reading, and does it really absorb, or is it just kind of glossing over it? We're going to meet the man who's the champion in the Guinness Book of World Records, Mr. Berg. A little bit on Atlantic City, behind the tables, with a young man who did his research and met some fascinating people. Mr. John Alcamo was covered the world of Atlantic City in a very talked-about new book. Had a lot of excitement today. Many people want to be anchor people with these exciting personalities. A little bit of nostalgia. I'm sort of reclassifying my list of our golden dozen talk show guests out of about 250,000. So if anybody out there has an idea and you want to maybe send me a little note on who you think was one of the golden dozen through the years on the Joe Franklin Show, you can write to me, Joe Franklin, care of WWOR-TV, Secaucus, New Jersey. I think it's 07096, and we'll eventually give you a list of what you think are the golden dozen, or as they say, a baker's dozen, maybe 13. Let me know, and I hope you'll mention Shirley Temple, Joe Louis, Ronald Reagan, John Wayne, James Cagney, Bruce Springsteen, Michael Jackson with the Jackson 5, Al Pacino. I guess the list is kind of endless. Woody Allen, Liza Minnelli. We shall return with today's guests following these words. Let's watch closely. I'll be right back.
2193, a world 200 years more advanced and 200 years more dangerous. In 2193, the world's most notorious fugitives escape. 200 years into the past. Now, in 1993, there's only one man who can stop them.
I'm going back.
A cop from the future here to hunt them down. Time Tracks.
Premieres January 20th at 8 on Channel 9.
When the handle of this pot broke, boiling water seriously burned Mrs. Platt. But she didn't think she had a case until we discovered the pot was defective. This bicycle frame broke while Jeff was riding it. We proved it was built wrong. Ordinary household products. Jacoby and Myers got Jeff and Mrs. Platt payment for their medical bills, pain and suffering, time off work. If you've been injured, whatever the cause, give us a call. I think we can help.
No, I can't call you. Get up and call us now.
645-3300.
That guy from Apex is right. I'm tired of feeling like I have no control over my own life. No control over the kinds of jobs I take, the hours I work, or how much money I make. The time has come for me to take charge and do something about my life.
Call Apex Technical School, 212-645-3300.
The time is now.
Thanks to our home equity loan from Statewide Capital, we lowered our monthly expenses by consolidating our bills.
1-800-DIAL-CASH.
Thanks to our home equity loan from Statewide Capital, we were able to open our own business.
1-800-DIAL-CASH.
1-800-DIAL-CASH. For years, homeowners have been calling us for fast, simple home equity loans. I'm John Green for Statewide Capital. We make borrowing money easy, even if you've been turned down by the bank or have past credit problems. So remember, Statewide Capital lends money fast. Call 1-800-DIAL-CASH.
Ask a man like Howard Stephen Berg, how many educators watching our show right now would be against being a speed reader? They would say, because I know their minds, they would say that it's instead of being absorbed, it's only glossing over it, and they would even give the the student a ticket for speeding in the classroom. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I was an educator in the New York City school system for 10 years,
Right.
and I got out because we weren't doing the job of educating, and I've developed this program to remedy the problem the country's in where we can't keep competitive with other countries. Our productivity is dropping because the school system is turning out illiterates. And I found a way for people to more than double to quadruple their reading rate with better comprehension in less than 4 hours.
So that's when you decided to go into a career known as speed reading.
Right. We're in crisis, and if you have a gift, I read over 80 pages a minute. I felt I had an obligation to share what I've learned with others. The beautiful thing about my program is even children can learn it. I had 9-year-olds quadruple in 2 hours' time. It's that simple.
What kind of material most lends itself, and what kind of material would not be compatible? I mean,
Sure,
I mean you couldn't do James Joyce in speed reading. You couldn't do Shakespeare. I mean, you couldn't do King Lear or Hamlet or Macbeth in speed reading, could you?
There are 4 types of reading. Reading for fun,
Right.
which is the type of reading you're talking about.
Right.
Reading for self-learning, like how to type, how to swim.
Right.
Reading for school, where you need to learn something temporarily, like calculus for 1 year. And mastering reading. A pilot, for example, can't say, I think the wheels might go down now. If they don't know, you're in trouble. That's master reading, where there's no room for error. And the skills that I teach vary according to the application.
I want to tell you, though, that I'm a fan. I've seen you on TV before, and I always
Thank
wanted
you.
to meet you.
I'm a fan of yours. I remember watching you when I was a 5-year-old frying egg on the sidewalks of New York. And
I remember that show.
Pleased to be here.
My pleasure.
Yes.
I'm a fan, too. So what about if I would just from left field pick out the next guest's book and ask you, would you give us a...
Sure. Why don't I read like the first 2 or 3 pages quickly? I just need to use the table here to lean.
You going to read them out loud or to yourself?
I'll read it to myself. I read 25,000 words a minute. I don't think you'd be...
25,000 words a minute.
Okay. He's talking about Vegas
great.
is a land of where people come from all over the world. There's over 35 million people coming in there. He's talking about the Mercedes and the different cars that are convening on this place near Philadelphia, and it's become a world magnet for attracting people with an interest in what Vegas, I'm sorry, not Vegas, Atlantic City, what it has to offer.
Could this help people that are entering or re-entering the job market, or help people to acquire new skills in this computer age, would you say?
We're doing corporate trainings throughout the country. I work with colleges and universities. I do trainings in New York every month. It helps everyone who needs to read. And Joe, who doesn't need to read? We were in an information explosion. People can barely keep up with what they need to know, let alone get ahead in areas that they have an interest in. Finally, I've given people the ability to empower themselves to learn. And I'd like to describe to some of you is how it's possible to read at this speed and learn it so simply.
You read actually how fast now?
Top speed is 80 pages per minute.
80 pages a minute.
Correct.
Give us one of those golden tidbits that you promised to give us.
When we were taught to read as children, we were taught to hear words on a page. So when we were reading something like this book, we'd read Atlantic City behind the tables. So what we're doing is we're hearing words in our head instead of seeing them with our eyes. And seeing is far more powerful than hearing. Imagine looking at a painting or a picture the way you look at a book, one line at a time. Hearing is temporal. You hear one word in sequence. Vision is static. It's hanging there. What I do is teach people to see information at the rate at which they view things. That's why you can drive a car or walk through a mall and spot critical information instantaneously and yet read so slowly. And it only takes a few moments to learn.
But the retention, let's say, if there's a really complex chapter, I mean, somebody can absorb that as the same as if he'd gone through it very carefully and studiously. And
even better, I'll show you how.
Right.
You hear a song on the radio, say a Beatle tune from 25 years ago. They play 2 notes and you could sing Day Tripper, Michelle, Yesterday, or Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. What's the next line?
How, I wonder.
What you are. And how long has it been since you sung that song?
About 2 weeks. No, about 39 years.
But you remember it perfectly. Yet this book, in 6 weeks from now, you might not even remember the title to, which is no offense to the writer, because we aren't using music to learn properly. We've learned the lyrics to tens of thousands of songs with no effort. We could recall them our entire lives without having ever seen the lyrics. And what I've done is incorporated the power of music into the program. For example, they get a man like Ray Charles to say, you have the right one, baby.
Right.
And everyone goes into a store, sees a can with the word immediately gets the message, even if they weren't paying attention. Sesame Street taught children to read and do mathematics by using music. We remember phone numbers like Pennsylvania 65000 or Beechwood 45789. but forget numbers we dial frequently because there was a tune. And so one of the secrets of power memory is to use music, and that's in my program.
Can't argue with him because he knows his stuff. Let me ask Mr. Howard Stephen Berg, are more and more people now speed reading?
I personally have taught thousands, and I'm finding that the need is exploding. I'm approaching different people in the government, in the corporate field. They are describing to me the problems they're having with people being unable to keep pace with the rate of which information is growing. For example, they say within 6 months after graduation, a doctor's already out of touch with the information that's vital to his patients. And they're under such pressure and time demands from their schedules that most of them can't keep current. With this program, not only doctors, but students, professionals, anyone. They say 90% of the books people buy aren't read. How many people buy the Sunday paper just to look at the sports section and can't finish it?
Can you read backwards, too?
Actually, I do read backwards. Think about this. In Israel, they read backwards.
That's right.
In China, they read vertically and backwards.
Both ways, right.
The eye can see in any field of orientation in which it's trained. We've been taught as a habit to read from left to right. I teach people to read in both directions.
I want to ask this man about a moment about his seminars, about his classes, about how to get his tapes, how to attend, but I want to bring in a few very gifted and curious type personalities who wanted to chat with Mr. Berg, starting with a young lady who is a member of the Quadruple Occupation Society. This lady named Vivian August Orgel. Vivian August Orgel.
Good to meet you. Thank
Author,
you.
Singer, comedian, and queen of hair removal. She's electrolysis. You're going to be in Gentleman Quarterly magazine, I read? Or?
Yeah, GQ just did an interview with me, and that'll be coming out in the spring, and I'm taking out hair off the man's back via electrolysis.
We had Cy Sperling here the other day. Cy's on more magazine covers than, you know how many magazine covers he's on right now? What do you want to ask us, Vivian, since you're the anchor lady of this man?
Well, I don't believe I have trouble with comprehension if I read slowly, but when I read quickly, I find that sometimes I have to reread something.
Let me show you how it works. Take something out of my workbook to show. I made a discovery. There's something called schema. It's what you know when you're learning something new, which is the key to reading. I'm going to read 2 or 3 sentences from a passage out of my workbook. It's describing something you know intimately, but because the critical words are deliberately missing, you won't be able to tell me what it is till I give you the information. See if you can guess, and the people at home can guess what I'm talking about. This is an easy thing to do. If possible, you will do it at home, but you can always go somewhere else if necessary. Beware of overdoing it. This is a major mistake and may cost you quite a bit of money. Any ideas? Probably not. Now I'm going to give you a one-word title, and listen to how your mind hears the same words differently, and it'll show why your mind can remember better when it has the schema. Laundry. This is an easy thing to do. If possible, you will do it at home, but you can always go somewhere else if it's necessary. Beware of overdoing it. This is a major mistake and may cost you quite a bit of money. Suddenly, the meaningfulness is there. It isn't the amount of text that you read or the amount of words that you recall. It's the significance, the quality of the words. And so what I've taught people to do, and that's why it works so quickly, is to read for the unit of meaning instead of the word unit. And so even someone like you who's having difficulty remembering will have no difficulty mastering the technique.
Vivian, you and I are going to go to a seminar together, right?
Absolutely.
Both invited.
Well, I mean, if it's something difficult, let's say you're studying for the bar exam and there's a lot of... No problem?
I had an LSAT student give me an example, and in the example, there was a 500-word essay, and at the end of the essay was a question which said, why did the judge render his decision in favor of the plaintiff? I sped-read this, and I read in a second, the reason the judge did this was blah, blah, blah. The other 450 words were irrelevant. Most people would be dragging in that long, lengthy, wordy passage instead of getting to the essence.
Let me get an opinion or a question or some input from the master astrologer, Mr. Stephen Joseph Sinopoli, speed reading, Howard Berg.
Well, first of all, Mr. Berg is a Leo, and you notice how dramatic he is to his approach to the matter, which is excellent. Do you teach people also to overcome fear with reading? Because a lot of people have basic fears, psychological drawbacks.
And pain. You know, our educational systems have left us in pain. How many people have graduated high school or college hoping never to read or take a test again? One of the most important chores I have in my seminars and in my workshops is to make people enjoy the pleasure of learning. And that's why our society is in trouble. How can we go ahead as a society if people are afraid to learn and master
When I was
the
a
language?
Natural-born psychologist.
When I was a
is
kid,
what
there
you
was a
are.
man on the radio named L.A. Speed Riggs. He was a tobacco auctioneer, and he was the speediest talker in the world. He would do a tobacco chant. Richie Ornstein is our triviologist. Nothing trivial. What do you want to say about the subject, Richard, of the world's fastest reader?
Oh, I'm going to take that course, Howard. I think
You're
it's
invited
fantastic.
with Frank and Vivian.
We'll have a group go there. Howard, what happens when you come across a word that you're not familiar with or you have to look it up? I'm sure it happens to people.
Happens. Let's take an example. The Agellius phoenicius flew through the air and landed on its nest and fed its young. What's an Agellius phoenicius? What do you think it is?
It's a Ragabulovich.
Exactly.
What type of animal would be flying through the air and landing on a nest and feeding its young?
Probably a bird.
Probably a bird. You're correct. The Agellius phoenicius is a red-winged blackbird. When we're learning new vocabulary, the gestalt of the word surrounding the word is what usually gives its meaning. When we do encounter unfamiliar words that must be memorized, I encourage people to put a mark in the column, the side of the page with a pencil, and then they go back and use the 7 or 8 memory skills which I teach. For example, do you ever try to spell a word aloud and found you couldn't spell it correctly till you wrote it down with a pen?
Yes. Right.
Or try to dial a number you learned on a touch-tone phone on a rotary dial only
That's
to find
right.
it didn't work?
Yes.
You're using a different part of your brain. We don't spell when we speak. I'm speaking now. Am I spelling? We spell when we write. We write one word at a time. And what you're recalling is the kinesthetic pattern, the motor motions of the hand. And that's where the memory's coming from.
I've got to go in this man's course. I can see that. We're going to meet the man who wrote the book that you've been breezing through, following these words. Let's watch them closely.
I call the line.
We call the line. I call the line.
Dial 1-800-758-GALS and join in on the party. Live, exciting conversation with beautiful, interesting gals from all over America. The Party Line, it's better than ever before. You always have a friend to talk to when you call 1-800-758-GALS. Only $2 a minute, adults only.
If you're looking for rates as low as this and quick approval on a home equity credit line account, listen to Bud Bash.
When you need a second mortgage, there's only one phrase you need to hear.
Mr. Anderson, your loan was approved.
Call the Personal Mortgage Corporation at 1-800-DIAL-PMC. No weeks of waiting, no application fees. You'll get an answer in 24 hours. Don't worry if others have turned you down. Call 1-800-DIAL-PMC, Personal Mortgage Corporation. When it comes to second mortgages, we approve.
Things were rough before I got laid off, and then, wow. Creditors calling day and night, foreclosure notices on our house. My wife finally stopped the madness.
How?
Called Jacoby and Myers. Instead of losing everything, all we lost were the bill collectors. Our bankruptcy lawyer helped us keep our house, furniture, my tools. You know, the bankruptcy laws aren't just for big corporations.
What's next?
I think we got a shot at getting our credit back.
As New Jersey State Teacher of the Year and a Covenant House volunteer, I want to tell America that we must make a new commitment to better the lives of our children. I want people to understand that children do not just grow. They need love, protection, sacrifice, and discipline. They need to be nurtured and trained. The school alone cannot assume all of these roles. We need the help of all of society's institutions if we are to improve our children's future.
I want to ask a man such as John Alcamo. John, those romantic tales of those great professional gamblers who can amass great winnings, you know, consistently. They can, you know, memory experts such as Mr. Berg. Is that sort of a golden illusion of the past, no longer possible with today's tight security, tight controls in Atlantic City?
The professional gambler isn't so romantic.
No.
But the professional gambler is a very astute businessman more than a playboy type. They have very strict money management codes that they play by, and they play by very strict playing conditions. And it's really not a playboy atmosphere at all with them. It's a business. It's run as a business.
You ever feel depressed, though, when you see the old-timers losing the whole pension check out there at Atlantic City? I mean, the chances of winning are so very, very minuscule. Doesn't it ever
Steve Wynn had the greatest comment. He said, the only way to make money in a casino is to own one. And that's probably very true. But I think the majority of people that do come to Atlantic City to gamble come down as a form of entertainment. And, they all come down dreaming to hit the jackpot. But win or lose, they have fun.
Let me show the man's book, Mr. You like the way this man read a few pages of your book so fast?
He read in 2 seconds, but it took me a month and a half, 2 months to write.
Atlantic City Behind the Tables by John Alcamo. John, are there any recorded figures, let's say, on the biggest loss or the biggest win ever in?
Yes, it took place at Trump Plaza.
Really?
A Japanese player came in, and his first time, first he won $19 million in Australia. He came to Atlantic City and he won $7 million at the Plaza, and he left, and then he returned again about 3 months later, and he lost $10 million. He was the highest roller in the world, the only man that bet $200,000 a hand, every hand, for any length of time. They say one player of that caliber makes up for 100,000 regular customers.
Boy.
He has since passed away, but as of now, he still is the highest roller in the world.
Let me go down the line and start with Mr. Howard Stephen Berg of the world's fastest reading course. What is your feeling on Mr. John Alcamo and his book called Atlantic City Behind the Tables?
I thought it was an interesting book. The plots that I read, it's well written, it's lively, it's not dull, and I like his style. And Atlantic City is someplace I travel to frequently to lecture, and I have a lot of friends there, and I like the subject.
So beyond the saltwater taffy, beyond the boardwalk and the rolling chairs, there's life, right, John?
There's a lot of life. Now 24 hours.
Well, Miss Miguel, what is your... and don't forget that Vivian gives a course, too. What do you call... But we'll talk about the courses later. What do you want to say first about the man or about the book? Or ask?
Well, I personally am definitely afraid of gambling because I like sure things, but I love the glamour of Atlantic City, and I like to go there just to have fun. And I'll spend about $50 like on a good dinner, you know?
Yeah, the average person, a lot of people come down and don't gamble a nickel. There's so many other things to do. Like you said, you come down for dinner, the entertainment, there's always entertainment.
And I love to see men in tuxedos, so, you know, it's great.
How can the Atlantic City experience, John, help or not help other communities that are considering legalizing gambling?
Well, I think they can learn a lot by Atlantic City's mistakes and by Atlantic City's non-mistakes.
Right.
Now, Connecticut, Bridgeport, Connecticut is considering gambling. It's probably going to be in a lot of states by the next 10 years.
I think Coney Island tried for it recently, but they didn't get the okay.
I didn't know about Coney Island, yeah.
Mr. Sinopoli, the world's foremost horoscoper, what is your input?
John is born under the sign of Gemini.
Really?
And I really feel that 1993 is going to be the year for Gemini when it comes to Game of Chance. It's just going to be a fantastic year for your sign, John.
I'm ready to play.
So good luck, really.
I'm ready.
Our topic, Mr. Ornstein, is the non-trivial subject. I know a friend of mine that came back from Atlantic City with $500,000, but he went out there with $3 million. So I apologize. So you know what they say? The only way to beat the odds is when you get off the plane, walk into the propeller, right? You've heard that one.
Well, they used to call Vegas Las Wages, Nevada.
Right. Oh, Vegas, right? Richie, the topic, Atlantic City Behind the Tables.
It sounds really interesting. John, how do you compare Atlantic City to other gambling towns in the country and different parts of the world?
Well, Atlantic City, everybody compares Atlantic City to Vegas, which is very unfair. First of all, Vegas, there was nothing there when the Flamingo was built. It was a desert. Where Atlantic City, the challenge was to build casinos in an existing community. And I think now it took them years, but now it's starting to blend in with the community and the casinos. And I think that was the biggest challenge, because Atlantic City was an existing city. It was a community.
This man, I want you to know, this man is a drummer, a famed drummer, touring with any act you... Frankie Valli, I've seen your name on the programs, the Four Seasons, and so how'd you become an author? You know, not that it's good to be a double. I said you're a member of the triple occupation or the quadruple occupation. You're a member of the double occupation society, right?
Well, I always loved reading.
Right.
And the writing, it just happened by accident. It's a long story, but it happened by accident, really.
You're going to write more books?
Oh, yes. I started a novel. It will probably take me 3 years to write, and it'll probably take him 30 seconds to read.
Who's one interesting person you met writing this book? One fascinating, interesting person?
I would say Roger Wagner, president of Trump Castle. Right. It was very interesting. I did a whole chapter on Roger Wagner, and it was very interesting because he's a man who started literally from the bottom up. He started at 18 years old as a desk clerk on the swing shift in Nevada while he was going to college. Right. And he worked his way through school working in the casinos, and today he's the president of the Trump Castle.
Where are you playing now?
Right now I'm working at the Showboat with the Chris Suey swing band in the New Orleans Square in the Showboat Hotel Casino.
Drumming?
Drumming. And I'd like to tell anyone who would like to purchase the book at Walden's or B. Dalton's to come down to the Showboat. I'm there 5 days a week, and I sign the book and say hello.
John Alcamo, in the tradition of... Gene Krupa.
That was the first drummer I saw at the Steel Pier.
Great.
12 years old, and right then I knew what I was going to do.
Chick Webb.
Chick Webb.
Buddy Rich. He sang well, too. The voice was rich.
Danced well, too.
Danced well. What do you want to say about Mr. Berg's specialty?
That's very interesting. When I was researching the book, which took me close to a year, this could have helped me tremendously. Of all the newspaper and magazines articles I was gathering.
I was going to say, if people want information...
Please, give any number.
There's an 800 number.
Give it.
800 Mr. Reader, M-R-R-E-A-D-E-R, which is 677-3233, and they could obtain the program. It has a guarantee. Even give my home phone number in the program if people need my help. And people like you who need to read quickly, and it's just about everyone, can benefit to this program.
Well, what a guest, huh? Good man, huh?
Would you say it's easier to... I really love to read. Would you say that helps in learning as opposed to someone who labors reading?
Helps both people because it's a different problem. But when you're reading for fun, one difference is you don't go as quickly. You wouldn't chug a bottle of Dom Perignon, and you wouldn't reach a Shakespearean sonnet in 6 seconds and say nice poem.
My problem is that the time flies. Let's watch these last words.
I'm Molly Scott for Inside Scoop.